So I will just chant say the refuge prayer, and cultivating bodhicitta. We'll do it in the English. So I go for refuge to the three jewels and the three roots, the sources of refuge. In order to establish all beings in Buddhahood, we generate the mind of supreme awakening. I go for refuge to the three jewels and the three roots, the sources of refuge. And in order to establish all beings in Buddhahood, we generate a mind of supreme awakening. And in the Tibetan ones, Namo Kunchuk Sumdang Sawasum Chapne Nama Chapsuchi Drokun Sanje Lagochir Jangjup Chokdu Sem Kedo. Olen Sawe Lama Rinpoche Dakachiwa Bedin Jishinla Karam Jambo. Gona Jitinte Kusumdaji Nurup Salvusor. All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So the six perfections, cultivating virtue. We're all faced with the question that life imposes upon us, the question at the heart of all philosophies, and its answer determines every action we take. So we can contemplate, what kind of a person do we want to be? And this goes beyond all of the labels and the initials after our names and the titles we accumulate. And some people intentionally and consciously endeavor to cultivate virtuous qualities, while others just follow their impulses and desires. And these decisions create very different results and life paths. So when we think about the teachings of the Buddha, return again and again to the three primary principles taught by the Buddha in cultivating the mind of enlightenment. And simply put, these three are: one, to cultivate virtue and abundance; to avoid doing harm to oneself and to others; and three, completely tame our mind. That is the teaching of the Buddha. So this first one, cultivate virtue and abundance, is where the six perfections come in. And to know how to cultivate virtue, the Buddha taught these. And this is the way of the Bodhisattva. This is the way we cultivate virtue, excellent virtue in abundance. So on the path to enlightenment, we endeavor to practice and apply the skillful methods taught by the saints and sages down through the ages. And they all speak of developing the kind of life we want to establish through the joyful perseverance of self-cultivation. So we'll focus on very practical, deliberate, and intentional methods to practice and cultivate what is known as the six perfections. They're also called the six paramitas or the six virtues. And this is the way we cultivate virtue. The six perfections or paramitas are qualities, for self-transformation. And these six perfections are found in the early Mahayana sutras and is the basis for our self-cultivation on our way to Buddhahood. This is the way of the Bodhisattva. So meditation is associated with each of the six perfections, those being generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. And the cultivation of the perfection of each of these six virtuous qualities of human character guide us, the individual, to the goal of realizing the mind of enlightenment. And in all authentic traditions, the aspiration to arouse and engender this enlightened mind for the benefit of all beings guides their practice. So the practitioner's motivation to practice virtue makes greater insight and greater freedom possible. We are all shaped by many different factors as we grow and develop our sense of who we are. Our genetics, our parents, family, social, economic, and many other forces impact the shape our identity. However, these influences do not shape us as much as the deliberate choices we make for ourselves every day. These conscious choices made every day over time are instrumental in cultivating our moral character. They are continually building our character for better or for worse, and even influencing our overall health. So, was there a question? So we can put this idea into proper context. The cultivation of virtue is more like a continuous training that we do over time, through our lives, rather than a rigid set of principles and rules. We could say that our first awakening in life is the direct realization that we alone, are responsible for our progress on the path to self-transformation and spiritual awakening. This is our responsibility. No one can do it for us. And at the moment we take this responsibility, we begin to generate the thought, of this self-cultivation, and that leads us on the way to enlightenment. When we recognize that we are responsible for our destiny, we take our first intentional step on our spiritual path. Prior to this realization, we are blown like a snowflake in the wind without a guiding principle for our day-to-day activities. This view of engendering the thought of enlightenment opens us to heightened mindfulness and awareness. And again, not just blown like a snowflake or a leaf in the wind here and there. We actually begin to take some responsibility for the direction in our life. And we can compare this, to the discipline required, to maintain our physical fitness. I mean, a lot of people pay attention to diet and sleep, etc., in cultivating their physical body. But in cultivating our character and moral fitness, we also need to concentrate on certain behaviors. And to succeed at either of these pursuits for any prolonged period of time, we need a joyful and diligent attitude, which is one of those 6 perfections. So we're going to go over all of those. But the way you do this will be very particular to you, your environment, lifestyle, working conditions, family, overall health, because you are unique in all the world. The truth is, there is no one like you, nor has there ever been, nor will there ever be a person like you. The causes and conditions that brought you into the world and that set the stage for your development are unique to you. Therefore, how you navigate the various experiences in your life also will be your responsibility. That requires mindfulness and attention. And of course, instruction. So we're very fortunate to have, Khenpo Rinpoche, the things that you're reading to help us formulate the way to cultivate virtue. We all come into this world with our own set of causes and conditions, strengths and weaknesses, hopes, fears to be worked through. And the 6 perfections really shine like the sun, illuminating every step of our path along the way. So to elucidate these 6 perfections, it usually starts with perfect generosity. So we'll go through these. We'll spend a little more time if needed on patience, but I think we need to spend time on all of them because they all go together in a meaningful way and ultimately leading to wisdom, the 6th. So this perfect generosity, this is the perfect enlightened quality of charity and giving. The essence of this virtue is unconditional love, a boundless openness of our heart and mind. It is giving freely without expectation, free of attachments, expectation, and of getting something in return. There are three kinds of generosity that are talked about for us to consider. Giving material help to those who lack the material necessities of life, giving protection to those in fear, and giving pure Dharma teachings to those who request them. The giving of material help, I think we all know. Its help can include giving to charity, the homeless, friends in need, famine and disaster victims, organizations that feed the poor, support animal shelters, to offer protection, comfort, and health services. These are some of the ways that we can give material help to those who suffer. There are many other opportunities, to give protection to those who live in fear. Supporting these organizations and charities can provide much relief, and we give according to our capacity. So when it comes to Dharma teachings, we may feel that it is beyond our capacity, and in some ways this is true, but the essence of Dharma is simple. It's kindness and compassion towards others. It is having a loving heart. So we must be mindful of our motivation when giving. There are many different ways of giving. We can give with an impure motivation, such as to make ourselves look good, or to get credit and praise for our good actions, to be well thought of or held in esteem, or to get something in return. This is not pure giving because it's conditional. And we can also be mindful of what we give and its result. Gifts of alcohol, tobacco, drugs, weapons may have some immediate benefit, short-term benefit, but in the long run can be detrimental. Giving is the most essential preliminary steps of our practice, and that's why it comes first. It should always be unconditional and free of selfish desires for gratitude, recognition, advantage, reputation, all these things. True generosity is not accomplished by the action of giving, nor by the gift itself, but by having pure motivation. To cultivate generosity, it's wise to contemplate not only the benefits of this practice, but also the disadvantages of being miserly. It is also wise to reflect on the obvious fact that our bodies and our wealth are all impermanent. Generosity is a cure for the afflictions of greed and miserliness and possessiveness. So in this practice of giving, we may offer our time, energy, money, food, clothing, or other gifts to assist others. And this is done naturally and selflessly without a cost-benefit analysis. Generosity. Anyone else have anything to add, or any other questions or comments about generosity?
Is there a time in which, is there such a thing as too much generosity?
Well, we talk about well, as there are the immeasurables, immeasurable love, immeasurable, those kinds of things. Can there be too much generosity? Yeah, if you give beyond your capacity, that's too much. You give what you can, and without remorse. If you give everything away and then you say, wow, I shouldn't have done that, and are remorseful about it, that is not beneficial. That is not meritorious. So we do have to have some wisdom in our generosity. We give what we can without remorse or regret. So if there's up to that point, you're fine. If you're giving to the point of diminishing your own health and well-being, yeah, that's too much.
Are you if it causes animosity of some sort. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Question along those lines, what about, on the other hand, the idea of receiving, if there's like frustration through receiving, if somebody else is very like giving and you have a hard time, you don't want that, it's kind of starting to like clutter your house or things like that, and that.
Well, you always have a choice to receive it or not. Yeah, but the giver, should not be offended if you already have one or it's too much. But you're giving the giver the opportunity of generosity, and that is a blessing for them. So it is said, to be receptive, and you're always thinking. We're talking about the qualities of a bodhisattva. You want to be able to provide a vehicle for them to generate merit as well. So receiving their generosity, with a caring and affection, knowing that it is to their benefit actually to be giving and to be generous, then you receive it. And it doesn't mean you have to keep it. You can give it away yourself. So, and once it's given, it's done. So if someone gives you something like that freely, and you say, well, that's very nice, and I know someone who might enjoy that, and you give it to them as a gift, that is your prerogative.
What if like their motivation isn't necessarily pure when they're giving it to you? And say I'm kind of speaking from experience. I actually had a really frustrating thing happen where there was somebody that was giving to me a lot, and I felt like if I created any kind of a boundary saying, that's too much, it's starting, to kind of stack up at my house, thank you, but I don't need that. And they told me that it was my duty to accept it. And I felt like their motivation for doing it was more for the praise and the wrong, I don't know, motivation. They didn't seem to care whether or not it was something that I wanted. They just wanted to do it to check off a box. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, and that's probably the case. And so that, they expose their motivation by saying, you have to accept this. No, you don't have to accept it. And there's the motivation may have been, to gain your attention, or to be seductive in some kind of a way through the gift. And there's lots of, as you say, impure motivations. So you have to have some clarity too in that. And if you trust your judgment and trust your intuition, that if that doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And you are not under any, to accept a gift. They can offer it, and you can say, no, I really have no need for that. And if you suspect that it is because of some secondary gain that they will get, which seems to be the case, and you saw that oh, you have to accept this, and that turns them off, that is their business. But you have every right to not accept a gift.
Thank you. Sorry, I hijacked that.
Yeah, that's right. It's but there's lots of ways to give, and there's lots of ways to accept. We want to have the purest way of both of those things, but there are a lot of different motivations. Anyone else have a comment? Yes.
Yes, Lama Losang, this may be early in the conversation concerning the six paramitas, but I was reading recently about threefold thatness, and the essence of that being no giver, no receiver, no gift, which I guess ties in with the last paramita of wisdom, but it seems to point directly towards this first one as well, of generosity. And I was wondering if you could speak to that, or maybe later on in the program concerning that particular view.
Well, you're absolutely right. about those, it's called the 3 spheres of giving, and to have the realization of emptiness, so that there is no giver, there is nothing given, and there is no receiver of the gift. That is the highest form of generosity, actually. So this is a fine time to bring that up, and it's certainly appropriate when it comes to this first paramita, or first virtue of giving. Does that need any more clarification? Does everyone understand that situation? If we understand emptiness and we understand no self, that this act is done with not looking for gain. In fact, that we understand the selflessness. So there is no self there to give the gift. There's no gift to give, and there's no receiver of that gift. That is the ultimate essence of emptiness. And it is to be considered like that. You're absolutely right.
And at this stage in our practice, when we do have attachment to this idea of, you know, oh, this is the gift you got me. What do we do? You know, is identifying it the best thing we can do at first? You know, what should we do in the moment when we realize that thought of attachment, when it comes to either giving or receiving, for that matter?
That's it. You just recognize it, and you see how you're clinging to it, or your dissatisfaction. You were expecting something else, and or that wasn't, you deserve more than that. Just look at what that brings up for you. And that is an important part of our practice. This is mindfulness. So as soon as it arises, we're aware of the arising of that feeling of whatever that feeling is, resentment or anger. And this is an opportunity, to uproot that klesha. So everything serves to further. We bring everything to the path. But if someone gives you something, in purely, as a gift, and as a receiver, there's nothing, no giver, nothing received, and like that too. It's empty. And if you can really continue to cultivate that perspective, that would be very helpful. And, this is samsara. We have expectations, we have disappointments, but there's a lot around gift giving, that's for sure. People may or may not like the gift. That is fine. That is their prerogative. But your giving, it really is just, we want to keep it pure, as we were, all those aspects that we were talking about. And it takes a lot of different forms. We can also, if we were to use an example of generosity, when freely given, skillfully given, forgiveness demonstrates the perfection of generosity. Forgiveness means different things to different people as well, but it can involve the intentional decision to let go of resentment and anger toward another person, or yourself for that matter. The action that someone has done to you, and we may harbor for a long time, and in a way we are bound by that negative emotion towards that person. So it is liberating if we can let go of our attachment to that, whatever that issue was with the person. The action that hurt you or offended you may still carry some emotional charge, but working on forgiveness can help lessen the grip it has on you. And it can help us let go of the control that another person or situation has over you, and give you the ability to attain true freedom from the resentment and the anger letting go of those old grudges and bitterness can actually improve your health as well and give you peace and stability of mind when seen as an act of generosity. You know how it is when we get upset about these things. We talk about the effect on our health. You know, forgiveness can be difficult. If you find yourself stuck, you can try, to use it as a meditation. So you sit comfortably in a quiet environment, you let your awareness come to the breath, take a few breaths as you would in shamatha. And when you're ready, you make the decision to forgive. Deciding to forgive involves coming to terms with the situation and freeing yourself from the chains that keep you bound. And what you're doing is, as an act, forgiveness is an act of generosity, extending love toward the person who has hurt you. Yes.
I'm so happy you brought that up, Lama Losang, that last part, because as we've been talking about giving and receiving, we were talking initially about material, right? Material things.
Yeah.
I at least what I gleaned, but I'm glad you brought up the latter part, because that's really actually what I was thinking about. And it made me remember how long it took me to I guess frame bad examples differently. So, just as an example, so if, when I was a kid or something, one of my parents were doing something which, either negatively impacted me or whatever,
Yeah.
obviously it took me into, their actions, right? They were showing me actions. It took me, of course, this is natural. It took me into my early adulthood to try to kind of, make sense of that. And then I guess the next plateau I took it up to was, it's not so much you should get, at least for me, my viewpoint was on it, that it's not so much that I should be in a literal sense, be angry about what they were showing me as an example, or the actions, right there, what they were giving to me. It wasn't really that. It just, I took a step back and I realized, since we're all human, they did me a favor by showing me what is an example of bad behavior and something that I wouldn't want to emulate when I had control over who I was when I was an adult.
Yeah. So that was an important lesson.
Yeah, was.
But
Yeah.
it's important also to emphasize that forgiveness does not involve excusing the person's actions or forgetting what happened or tossing justice aside. It's an opportunity, as you used it, to develop our loving kindness and compassion, towards others or that situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of our mind training. This is mind training.
For sure. Thank you.
And it's the cultivation of bodhicitta. So if there is someone, who did us some harm, we can ask ourselves the question about the person who might have offended us. Do you know what life was like for this person growing up, or what it is like for them now? We may not be aware of the difficulties they may have had growing up, as you mentioned, or recently. And some people have difficulty handling stress and act out because of fear or confusion. There are always causes and conditions that influence our behavior. And so the question is not meant to excuse or condone, but rather to better understand another person's pain and what makes them vulnerable or stressed. So it is an act of love. And so we can be aware of the thoughts and feelings that may be arising, when we think about an event that happened to us or a person, and let them dissolve into emptiness, naturally self-liberated. So this is what we do with thoughts and those kinds of feelings of that we might have against another person, and letting go of that. these thoughts come and go, and we watch them with equanimity and without judgment. And it just comes back to our shamatha and vipassana practice. And as you contemplate that, you can become aware of a slight welling up of compassion and loving kindness toward the person who offended you. And you can nourish this feeling like caring and protecting, a seedling's tender shoot as it pushes up in your spring garden. We can see the situation with new eyes. And this person may not, may have been confused, mistaken, misguided, and they may even deeply regret their actions. And as you think about this person, be aware of a softer feeling growing in your heart toward them, and expand that feeling, of caring and empathy and compassion. This is also an act of generosity. This is to find a generous heart of forgiveness. Other comments or stories about that? If not, we'll go on to the second.
One thing, Lama, it's always seemed like a fine line between having forgiveness, or I should say, trying to be compassionate to someone who is either, I guess, abusive or verbally abusive family members, like to have that compassion and skillful means when dealing with people that are very difficult. It's repetitive, that they're totally caught up in samsara, and you're trying
exactly
to
right, and they're suffering as a result of that. So that's where our compassion comes in. These are not happy people, and we talked about causes and conditions, how they grew up. They were probably abused. That is most commonly the situation by their parents, by someone. And so that is just what they learned. And we know that if they continue on that path, they are just accumulating more negative karma that is going to cause them suffering in the future. That negative karma leads to suffering. So that can generate, as we perfect these qualities, that generates the compassion in us, because that they are headed down a path that is going to create tremendous suffering for them. I mean, we don't make action, like we said, it doesn't negate the wrongness of their action, but the consequences of that action are going to be suffering. And as a bodhisattva, this is the path of the bodhisattva, we can't help but want to help them not create more negative karma and consequently the suffering. They're going to have much more suffering than the abuse that they may have created for someone else. And we often, it's easy for us to have compassion for the abused, but for the abuser, not so much, as you're intimating here, that it's hard to do. But we can turn that around and actually have more compassion for the abuser, knowing that individual is creating more and more negative karma for themselves that is going to manifest as tremendous suffering. Does that help, Mike, if you think about it that way?
I think so. I think the other thing that kind of comes to mind is something you mentioned earlier about giving. We give to our capacity.
Yes.
And there's that skillful idea of, whether when in a situation like that, are we doing good?
Yeah.
Are we real benefit, or are we just perpetuating a problem?
Well, that's where the wisdom comes in. And all of these perfections need to be referenced with wisdom. That is that's the final, but it's also involved in every one of these. How do we cultivate these perfect qualities? It requires wisdom. I mean, and cultivating them leads to wisdom, but it goes back and forth. There's the five basic perfections that lead to the sixth wisdom, but wisdom is involved in all of them. So as you say, yes, it requires wisdom.
Thank you.
And compassion and loving kindness. So we have the opportunity to cultivate all those things as the Bodhisattva's path. That's what this particular teaching is about. The essence of the Mahayana path. So the second one is perfect ethics or perfect morality. Those ethics and morality kind of go together. This is the perfect enlightened quality of virtuous and ethical behavior, morality, self-discipline, personal integrity, honor, and harmlessness, ahimsa. So the essence of the virtue is that through our love and compassion, we do not harm others with our thoughts, our speech, our actions. And practicing the perfection of ethics is being mindful and refraining from the 10 non-virtuous actions. There are 4 of speech: telling lies, slandering others, gossiping, using harsh speech, swearing. Those are the 4 of speech. And there are 3 non-virtues of body. They are killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. And there are 3 of mind: craving and attachment, wishing to harm others, and holding wrong views. So all of these are in the domain of ethics and morality, to refrain from the 10 non-virtuous actions. So I like the analogy of cultivating our minds and growing our garden. I mentioned that previously. So we must do 2 things in the garden. We prepare the ground and plant the flowers and all of the things we wish to cultivate. And we also, not only do we plant the positive seeds that we want, but we also have to uproot the negative behaviors. So we continue to develop loving kindness and compassion for others, as well as not harming them and trying to expand our goodwill toward all beings. When our mind is free from negative emotions, it naturally becomes tranquil and focused. Our loving kindness and compassion will arise naturally. It is unlikely that we can practice pure morality in all things in the beginning of our practice, but we can develop these good qualities and refrain from expressing negative emotions. And these guidelines, again, are in no way meant to be a burden or restriction to our freedom. We follow these precepts so we can enjoy greater freedom and happiness and the security in our lives. Because through our virtuous behavior, we are no longer creating conditions for suffering in the future. We come to realize that unethical behavior is always a cause of suffering and unhappiness. So practicing the virtue of ethics, we are free of negativity. We are at ease, naturally confident and happy, because we're not carrying any underlying sense of guilt or remorse. We have nothing to hide. So we can, maintaining our integrity and upright moral conduct is the cause of all goodness, happiness, and ultimately freedom, and leads to the goal of enlightenment. So the practice of and virtue of ethics so we should cultivate ethical behavior and contemplate the disadvantages of unethical behavior, and in so doing we'll have a greater enthusiasm for this practice. We can relax, we don't have to keep looking over our shoulders because we have done some harm or have been unethical in our behavior. And we can see that in the news, how that works. Any comment about ethics? Anyone have anything to say about that, or comments or questions? Morality. It doesn't seem like we put much stock in morality and ethics these days. But it is what the Buddha taught. It is the essence of our freedom to be ethically and morally upright. So that was the second. And the third is perfect patience. This is the perfect patience is the enlightened realization of tolerance, forbearance, and acceptance. Its essence is the strength of mind and heart that enables us to face life's difficulties and challenges without losing our composure and inner tranquility. And of course, we can't accomplish anything without patience. The ability to endure and have forbearance is critical to our practice and our lives, and no matter what it is we do. We have the capacity to remain loving and compassionate, even in the face of conflict. Practicing patience gives us a great inner strength and courage to face difficult situations. We are less likely to get upset when things don't go our way and less likely to act badly towards others. Our knee-jerk response to negativity, acting out, it creates a little space for equanimity and an opportunity to disengage and take a breath before responding, reacting to things. Patience is also called forbearance, and it gives us the capacity for forgiveness as well, and to accept suffering in ourselves. This is inevitable. We have these bodies, it comes with birth. So it prevents us from getting angry if someone mistreats us, which usually only aggravates the situation. And instead of mindlessly reacting, we realize the person giving us a difficult time is suffering and out of control. And it creates the conditions for compassion, as we were talking about, because that person's, we can see their anger, and that is clearly not a happy place to be. So it creates the conditions for compassion toward that individual. And we don't have to behave in the same aggressive or unskillful way. We can remain calm, and hopefully in that way we are able to diffuse a negative situation so it can be resolved calmly. And we do our best to embrace, any adversity, insult, distress, and the wrongs of others with patience, tolerance, free of resentment, irritation, and emotional reactivity. Granted, it is easier said than done, but that is the practice, of the Bodhisattva. In practicing this virtue, we never give up or abandon others. We help them cross over the sea of suffering, and we maintain our inner peace and maintain calmness and equanimity. That is what this paramita means, patience. So when we see the arising of anger in ourselves, we can transform it with patience. Patience is the antidote to anger. And a bodhisattva practices patience as a skillful means not to allow people or circumstances to dictate their state of mind. It is your mind, and no one can create anger. You do that all by yourself. So we don't allow people or circumstances to dictate the state of our mind. Comments, questions?
Like,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Repeat. No, go ahead.
Sometimes it may feel to others that are in the moment like our equanimity is disengaging or keeping emotions at bay, like as if we don't care. How do we get around that and still be compassionate, but have equanimity at the same time?
Yeah, you may really upset that person if you're calm and cool and they're upset, and but that you just are grounded. You don't have to get into a tirade. It doesn't mean that you're aloof or disconnected. You just don't react in the way that they're accustomed to. So sometimes people just try to get your goat, as they say, but you are like a mountain, stable, unmoving, grounded. in this patience. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I mean, we can do, you could do an exercise, to begin by bringing your attention to your breath and taking a few slow, deep breaths and relax and let go of any thoughts and emotions and let your breath be natural, doing shamatha. And then continue to gently ride the natural wave of your breath without trying to control anything. And when you're in a state of impatience or that kind of situation, notice the thoughts that you may be having, such as reminding you to do something or the tasks that remain unfinished, all those kinds of things. And then you can choose in this moment not to engage in thoughts, but to remain calm and present in the moment. Let yourself feel spacious in your mind. The power of being still, cool, and calm is the power of patience. And I'm sure you've had that experience, how you could stay relaxed and at ease when, you're like the center of the hurricane. Things are going crazy around you, but you can be at ease, But you may also think of a time when you were impatient, angry, and upset, and the heated moment with a loved one, or out in public with a stranger, or in private with yourself, and the energy that that's like, feeling your heart rate increasing, your blood pressure rising, tempers flaring, getting hot under the collar and bothered. That's a very different experience when you let anger grab you like that. And compare those two feelings, what patience is like, as we were saying, that stillness, the calm and power of patience, and the energy, get red in the face and angry and blood pressure and all the rest of it. So compare that feeling and the previous experience of patience, and which of those qualities do you think we should abandon, and which of those qualities do you think we should cultivate? So it can be a meditation that you can do on patience. The Buddha taught so many different ways to cultivate virtue, and in a meditative style. So that is the third. Patience is the third. The fourth is a perfect, joyous effort. And progress on the path does require effort. Joyous effort is the perfection of the enlightened quality of energy and vigor and vitality and endurance, diligence, enthusiasm, and persistent effort. We can use a lot of words that are wrapped up in this, I call it joyous effort, because it should have that quality of joyfulness as well, joyous effort. But it does. It's also called vigor. Sometimes it's listed as vigor or diligence. But I like joyous effort. The essence of joyful effort is having the courage and energy and endurance to untiringly benefit others, without expectation of personal recognition or reward. To practice the first three perfections of generosity, ethics or morality, and patience in the face of difficulties, we need the perfection of joyous effort and perseverance. This gives us the energy and endurance to continuously practice the Dharma and pursue our goal of enlightenment for the good of all beings, and to continue when things get tough, which they inevitably will. This quality of joyful effort and enthusiastic perseverance is needed. So this is our attitude toward our spiritual practice. We will come to appreciate and have great joy at having found such a wonderful way of life. This virtue of joyful perseverance has three aspects that we can identify. It's understanding the great value of traveling the path, and having full confidence that we can do it. We really do have to have that understanding of the path and that we have the capacity that we can do it. And the second one, maintaining our joyful effort despite setbacks we might encounter along the way. You know, for example, we need the determination to be consistent with our meditation practice. When we feel burdened by daily responsibilities, we think, oh, I don't have time to meditate. But if we have this quality, we will find the time. And it will make our burden less, you know. And the third is persevering in our journey until we arrive at the destination. You know, we stated that there are two obstacles on the path to freedom. And they are, first, not starting. And if starting, not continuing to the end. So once we have entered the path to liberation, freedom, we must persevere and go all the way to its completion. That requires perseverance, diligence. And when we practice this, we also cultivate a strong and healthy mind. It has many secondary benefits. Effort gives us great determination in achieving all of our goals. Certainly our Dharma goals, but even when facing obstacles or problems in mundane life, we have to persevere. Not giving up is essential to the success of any endeavor. Any particular examples or comment or question about joyous effort?
It can be a hard one sometimes when I feel like, especially in Western culture, where we're always going and trying to find that energy. Sometimes I see it in myself sometimes too. I catch myself at work, you know, not bringing a joyous attitude to the things I'm doing and realizing that that's part of the practice.
It is. And when you do that, it changes everything.
And sometimes it seems like some people just have that natural like vigor, that natural like endurance to just always be on it. And like myself, I struggle with that. I struggle with, you know, chronic fatigue and I have the like mental, I guess the motivation to want to have that vigor, and sometimes my body just doesn't show up for it. It can be very challenging to see other people having that vigor that you want to be able to provide, and not to get hard on yourself during that, but also, like you said, to not give up.
Right, exactly. And there'll be times when we don't have the energy for it, and that's okay too. I mean, there are those times. We can't always be full steam ahead, but you know, when we invite this feeling of joy into our heart, you know, by contemplating the importance of having a joyful attitude toward our meditation practice, for example, we resolve that we are practicing for a twofold benefit for ourselves and for others. And our practice now becomes imbued, you know, with joy and ease, and we allow a deep feeling of satisfaction to arise as you apply the joyful effort, and you can contemplate the benefits that you've already received through the practice of mindfulness in meditation, loving kindness, and compassion. You've all been practicing for some time, but give yourself some credit as well for the achievements that you've made so far. And you are a very different person, I guarantee you, now than you were when you entered the path, in terms of your capacity to do what we're talking about. And this brings a feeling of gratitude when you contemplate it, or allow yourself to bring up a feeling of gratitude for the progress that you've made on the path. And, you know, we talk about dedicating the merit, you know, of our practice, you know, to all beings. So when we, at the end of the day, when we review our day, we can experience this joyful enthusiasm for the practice of Dharma and offer our merit for the benefit of all beings. May they also experience this joyful enthusiasm for the practice of Dharma. That's the only way we're going to succeed in it. If it's drudgery and painful, that's something we'll avoid. But if we can bring this spirit of joyful perseverance, then these positive feelings have much more strength and power. When we think of a negative thought, there's an immediate loss of energy. When you're worried, you can't think straight. And when you're tired, when you get up in the middle of the night and you start worrying, don't act on anything. You're about the 30 IQ points down at that point. And to make a decision or to worry about something, wait until the morning, and the whole thing is different. A word of advice. All right, so these last three are very important. The right effort, perfect effort in our practice, and then a perfect concentration. This is where the mindfulness comes in. Our mental stability. Perfect concentration is the enlightened quality of meditation, contemplation, particularly mindfulness and mental stability. So our minds have the tendency to be very distracted, as you may have noticed, and restless, always moving from one thought or feeling to another. And if we don't stabilize the mind with meditative stability or contemplation to quiet our restless mind, we will just keep engaging in the same habitual patterns of thought and behavior. I often talk about training our mind like training our puppy. Training your puppy to stay is not an easy task, but it is important for both you and the puppy that this training take place. And meditation of our minds, fortunately, we are trainable, and we can make our minds workable. But it takes the effort, like we talked about. But with that effort comes the benefits and comes the stability of the mind. And this is what shamatha is, through our regular practice of shamatha for stability and meditation. And with the same enthusiasm that we may go to the gym and work out to cultivate our physical body for physical strength, we practice taming the mind in meditation to cultivate our mental strength. Equally important, if not more so. The mind is really supreme in this situation. We have to have a mind that's workable, it's stable. And that is the point of perfect concentration. When we train our mind by practicing meditation, such as shamatha and vipassana meditation practices, we achieve attention, clarity, composure, tranquility. And this helps us be present in our lives and to overcome stress and anxiety. So the development of undistracted concentration, requires perseverance, attention, mindfulness, and awareness. But as we say, the rewards are worth it. And is what gives us the power in our meditation. The sixth of the paramitas, perfect wisdom. So, the essence of concentration is the cultivation of the shamatha, vipassana practices, and we persevere in these meditation practices daily. We have to do it regularly, just like we eat daily, just like we have our daily routines. Meditation really does need to be part of that. So remember that the Tibetan word for meditation is gom, G-O-M. Does anyone know what that means? It means, go ahead.
I said center.
It It means becoming familiar with. We're becoming familiar with our mind. We are becoming more and more familiar with our mind's true nature. And this is the essential for progress on the path to enlightenment, is to know our mind. We talk about our mind. What is our, but what does that mean? And we find that out by the direct experience of the nature of our mind through, first of all, having the concentration and focus, and then the perfection of wisdom comes with the vipassana to rest in our absorption in samadhi for extended periods of time. And that is the result of prajna. That is the essence of the prajna paramita, is wisdom. So the perfection of wisdom is the culmination of the previous 5 perfections, and it is the quality of transcendent wisdom. So the vipassana means insight, and understanding. It's seeing clearly. So it is the quality of transcendent wisdom, insight, and understanding. And it's also the hardest one for us to realize because of our habitual patterns that obscure our mind's true nature. And this perfect wisdom is the supreme wisdom, which is the highest understanding and realization that a human being can attain. It is our Buddha nature. It is the perfected, enlightened quality of insight and total clarity. So with the perfect wisdom, we are better able to cultivate the other 5 perfections. We were saying, in order to really cultivate the other 5, generosity, ethics, morality, patience, joyous effort, and concentration, it is necessary that we bring wisdom to the table and have that view, correct understanding. And it is the awakened wisdom that realizes the interdependent nature of all things. We see the essential nature of reality with profound lucidity. Our perception, goes beyond the elusive and deception veils of our material existence, and certainly beyond our kleshas and our misunderstandings. We release our ego attachments and dissolve our dualistic concepts, with this insight. So wisdom also directs the cultivation of the other 5 virtues. And while practicing the other 5 virtues, the first and the 5 that we talked about, we develop wisdom. And we are also practicing wisdom to let go of our ego clinging and self-absorption through developing those first 5 that we talked about. So this is the way of the Bodhisattva. Any other questions or comments?
What do you do when you feel like you're not being very wise or you're not accumulating wisdom?
We have to persevere. We just continue, put one foot in front of the other and continue on the path. And but again, this requires persistence in our Dharma activities, in our practice of meditation. And the wisdom comes from the 6th virtue, which is wisdom. And that is insight. So the 2, that we talk about, meditation is shamatha, first, the tranquility meditation to make the mind workable. And the second is the vipassana, which is a clear insight into the nature of reality, where we begin to rest the mind in its natural state. And through our practice, it's absorption in our samadhi. So without, I was saying, it's like training our puppy to stay. Our mind has got to be stable. And when we place it, or even it's called, the shamatha is also called even placement. When we place it, it does stay. When our puppy is trained and we say stay, it can do so. When our mind is trained and we say stay, it can do so. And that gives us the ability to develop the compassion, the wisdom that is necessary to go deeper into the nature of our own mind and see the clear bliss and emptiness with clarity. And this idea of the dependent origination, that all things, are causes and conditions, and all the aspects that the Buddha talked about are available to us when we have tamed our mind. And that is what meditation is. So we started this by saying, the essence of the Buddha's teaching is to cultivate virtue and abundance, to avoid wrongdoing through the 10 unvirtuous actions, and to cultivate, tame our mind. So that is that's the essence of the teaching right there. But there are different ways to do that. We have the three yanas. We have the Hinayana or the Theravada view. We have the Mahayana view, and we've got the Tantrayanic view or Vajrayana path. And we have to combine all of them together to get the desired result. The essence of the Buddhist teaching is his first teaching was on the Four Noble Truths. And we have to understand those Four Noble Truths. And the fourth of those, of course, is the Noble Eightfold Path. And I think we've talked about that before, but we have to cultivate the understanding of how the mind works and how we cultivate virtue and how we avoid wrongdoing. And then the second turning of the wheel was the Mahayana, where the Buddha began talking about the Prajnaparamita through the Heart Sutra and other teachings that he did. And then lastly, the Vajrayana, where we use the Yidam practices. We see this as a pure realm, and we use mantra recitation and those kinds of things, which are different. It's a different vehicle, the Vajrayana. That was the third turning of the wheel, which extended the Mahayana, but also included the idea of bodhicitta and Tathagarbha, our Buddha nature, more those kinds of things. So it was really brilliant. I mean, he was such a wonderful teacher and laid out the plan for us. But we have to know that teaching, and we have to study it and make it our own, and then we practice it. To hear it, contemplate it, and practice it. That is how it is done. So hopefully, our reading is more than just an intellectual kind of exercise. We are practicing what we're learning. There's Tonglen, which is, an exercise for exchange of self or other to help us cultivate bodhicitta. And that comes out of the tradition of Lojong, mind training. Again, it is vast. The teaching of the Buddha is so vast. And we can practice everywhere, when we can just say, to go a little bit further with the Tonglen, for example, we can practice everywhere at any time. It doesn't have to be on the cushion. When you're doing anything, such as, taking a shower, eating, dressing, or whatever other activity, you think, I dedicate the merit of my activity for the benefit of all beings. And you can even transform your sleep, into practice of virtue. If you go to sleep thinking, I will help to benefit all beings, your sleep will be transformative. And you can practice dream yoga, and be lucid in your dreams and practice lucid dreaming. But we begin by doing that, or just chanting Om Mani Padme Hum before going to bed, and let that be how you go to sleep. And if you wake up in the night, you just return to sleep again. You kind of have that view and let that mantra resonate with you.
Well,
So-
could you put, a refresher on the 21 breaths in 21 days?
You'd like to go through the
A re-
the shamatha practice?
Yeah, if you could give us a refresher on how to do the 21 breaths in 21 days.
Sure. Yeah, that's the essence of our teaching. So that would be good to know. And part of that is also walking meditation. You know, we can to do that as well. But yes, we can review those as well. And that is, really what your practice should begin with is establishing, a daily practice of shamatha. Shamatha and vipassana do go together, but we have to begin with our shamatha. So emphasis is always placed, on the importance of meditation. So our lives have become very complicated, as Mike was saying, but we can learn to use our meditation practice to develop calmness and tranquility. It will not bring instant results, but that's why we have to be persevering. But if we are consistent and sincere, our beneficial changes will definitely gradually come about. So devote a time each day to your meditation practice and choose a place, first of all, where you will not be disturbed. The place should be quiet and comfortable, and create a clean and safe, sacred space for yourself. Some people like to add a flower, incense, or a picture of their teacher, or some type of inspirational items to help create a special sacred environment to enhance the beauty and mindful attention. And so shamatha meditation, as you know, also known as calm abiding, is the foundational practice in various Buddhist traditions, particularly in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. The term shamatha is derived from the Sanskrit and means calmness or tranquility. And the primary objective of shamatha is to cultivate a single-pointed concentration, stability of mind. And by training the mind in this way to remain focused on the chosen object of meditation, practitioners develop the ability to sustain attention and reduce distractions. And the Buddha taught this to establish our basic tranquility and calmness of mind. And as the mind becomes more settled and calm, mental and emotional disturbances begin to subside, and leading to a sense of tranquility, clarity, and inner peace. And this is essential to progress on the path. So, and we're seeing the shamatha, and I will get to the instructions, but we see, it is rooted in the Buddhist traditions, but it's been adopted and adapted by practitioners of mindfulness and secular meditation. And it's now, we see it in research journals in psychology and other kinds of sciences, reducing stress and improving focus and that kind of thing. But through the calming of the mind, we can experience a state of peace and tranquility. And this is a prerequisite to the mindfulness and insight, wisdom that we were talking about. So let's see. Should we start with the posture? Do we know about the posture, the 7 points of Arochana? It's best, because we meditate with our body. We meditate with our mind, basically, but we have to have the body in a comfortable and conducive to meditative stability. So it is good to first sit comfortably on the floor, if you can, with your spine straight and the legs crossed. It is not the easiest position to begin with, but settle yourself, in a comfortable seat, a safe and quiet place where you'll not be disturbed. And if you can, sit in the full lotus or half lotus position. I think you all know what that is. Full lotus, both feet rest on opposite thighs with the soles up. And if this is too difficult, sit in the half lotus, resting one foot on the floor under the leg, and bring the other foot to rest on the opposite thigh. And it's good to sit on a meditation cushion, a zafu like you have in the center there. So your bottom is about 4 inches higher than your knees. And also you can have a zabuton, the larger cushion that the zafu sits on, a larger square cushion. So you, and your hands, the first one is the legs and sitting upright. And you place your hands in one of the 2 contemplative gestures. First, the hands can be palmed down on the knees. And the second is a more traditional posture for the hands. Place the back of the right hand on the palm of the left. Both hands are facing up and the thumbs are gently touching. So this, the hands will naturally rest about 4 finger widths below the navel, resting in the lap and touching the thighs close to the abdomen. And in this posture, the thumbs are approximately at the level of the navel. And either of these positions is fine. The spine is kept straight, shoulders are relaxed, chin is slightly tucked in, tip of the tongue is resting on the upper palate at the base of the front of the teeth. And this helps to control saliva production and avoid frequent swallowing and relax the jaw. The eyes are open and the gaze is down at a 45-degree angle or so, and you let your eyes be relaxed, slightly open, half-lidded, and unfocused. You're not looking at anything, and keeping the head and the neck straight, gaze down at an imaginary spot about a forearm's length in front of you. So obviously, not everyone's accustomed to these different postures, and because of different physical capacities and flexibilities, our bodies and so forth, some people may be able to do the postures easier than others, but it is important to understand the correct posture helps the mind find peace, strength, and control. And of course, you can sit in a chair. And if you're sitting in a chair, you're sitting towards the edge of the chair so as not to lean back. The feet are flat on the floor, about shoulder width apart. The hands are in the same positions as we stated on the knees or in the lap. And you can experiment with these postures and make the micro adjustments necessary throughout your sitting posture. Sometimes you'll just have to straighten up a little bit, but you're not leaning to the left or right or back or forth. So the basic meditation for taming the mind, you begin first to sit in the posture that we described for a few moments. Take a couple of slow breaths, relaxing natural breaths. And after this, the initial kind of slow breaths, breathing through the nostrils, you can bring your awareness to the in-breath. You may feel a little cool on the inhale with the nostrils, a little warm on the exhale, and just follow the breath. Inevitably, thoughts will distract you now and then, taking you away from your awareness. Notice the distraction immediately. That's the first benefit that you'll experience in meditation, the busyness of the mind. And that is something that's been going on all your life. And when you notice that you are involved with a thought, just recognize it as thinking and go back to the sensation of the breath. There's no judgment about the thoughts, no judgment or blaming yourself if your attention slips. We just continue to mindfully follow the breath, ride the wave of your breath. Thoughts come and go. We can imagine them like clouds in a spacious sky or a wave in the ocean, seeing the moment arising and then letting them dissolve back into emptiness. And we return again and again to the sensation of breathing, letting the breath anchor our awareness. This gives the mind something to follow instead of the distracting thoughts. So don't follow distracting thoughts, follow the breath, which keeps the mind very sharp and clear. When breathing in, you're aware of breathing in. When breathing out, you're aware of breathing out. Just follow the breath. Notice a pause, possibly at the bottom of the exhale before taking your next breath in. We remain mindful and vigilant. We kind of monitor ourselves not to be excessively relaxed or excessively rigid, just right, not too tight, not too loose. It is sometimes compared to a string instrument, like a lute or a guitar. If the strings are too tight, they'll break, and if they're too loose, we won't get a sound. So the strings that we have to be just right, not too loose, not too tight. So certainly, it's most important to meditate regularly. So that's where the 21 breaths as our initial step. We can begin with mindfully taking 21 breaths, just as we talked about those, and as our initial step in establishing our daily practice. And if we do this for 21 days, we will begin the process of constructing a new lifelong habit. So again, we start by selecting the location for our practice, a quiet, comfortable place, and you make it comfortable for you. The space that makes you happy is good feng shui, and it supports your practice of meditation. And the next thing is to select a time for your meditation. I'm often asked, what is the best time to meditate? The best time to meditate is anytime, day or night. Your practice, your daily practice must fit your routines and lifestyles in the beginning, but in the beginning, we must create the habit of sitting. So that's why we say, if we can regularly and consistently sit for 21 days, you'll create a new and lasting habit, but it needs to be consistent. And later you can extend your sitting time for longer than 21. But, we want to practice mindfulness, not being distracted. And if we're building mental muscle, as I said. So you want to leave your practice with the sense of, I want to do more, instead of saying, oh, is this over yet? You want to have that quality of lightness and joy. So create a shrine for yourself, make an offering, lighting a candle or offering a flower, incense, do 3 prostrations, when you go into your shrine room. You'll often see practitioners, as you know, doing 3 prostrations when they enter a temple or a shrine. So we do this rooted in the idea of showing respect and humility and devotion, in this case to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And by performing 3 prostrations, the practitioner is expressing their reverence toward these 3 important aspects of the path. In addition, the prostrations can be seen as a form of physical and mental purification. So we bow and touch the ground with 5 points: the forehead, the hands, and the knees. And the practitioner is symbolically offering their body, speech, and mind to the 3 jewels and letting go of their attachments and ego, delusions, or ignorance. And consequently, this can be a way of generating great merit, which leads to our spiritual progress. So you take your seat, as described, the 7 points, and you cultivate a mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, just like we did when we started this session. We did the refuge prayer and the cultivation of bodhicitta, the wish to attain enlightenment, motivated by great compassion for all sentient beings. And this is accompanied by the falling away of our attachment to the illusion of an inherently existing self. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So let the breath be natural, don't intentionally try to speed it up or slow it down. Stay present, ride the wave of your breath. Continue to follow the breath and be aware of it. We're like time travelers, I always say. We're projecting into the future or reflecting on the past. Rarely are we in the perfection of this moment. So we want to cultivate this presence, of being present in our practice and following the breath. Watch for projections into the future and reflections on the past. Stay present. So I think that is all the time we have. We pretty much exhausted our hour and a half here. And we can dedicate the merit. If there's no further questions or comments. Anything else? All right. Any other announcements that need to be made, Mike?
We announced the visit of Lama Losang. That's August 29th, 30th, and 31st.
Yes.
And we should have some more details in the newsletter shortly. So that's what we have going on. We may have another cleaning day before the visit and another painting day before the visit. So that will also be posted on our social media.
All right. So we'll dedicate the merit at this very moment for all the peoples and nations of the earth. May not even the names disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. Rather, may pure conduct, merit, wealth, and prosperity increase. And may supreme good fortune and well-being always rise in the minds of beings. May all be auspicious for us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lama.
Very good. Look forward to seeing
Many
you.
thanks,
Thank you,
Lama.
Lama Losang.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, as
Thank you.
always.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Pleasant dreams.